Now, I'm one of those very rare gamers who's constantly asking for more from the big gaming companies. I just thought I'd start off with a little joke there. No, but in all seriousness, my mind can't help but wonder every time we get a big new release nowadays, especially when a lot of those big new releases are not exactly brimming with content or polish. And that's not to say that every game is like that nowadays. You know, you got your Persona 5s, you got your Breath of the Wilds, you got your Odysseys, and tons of indie games that come out that just knock it out the park, mate. But then you got your Pokemon Sword and Shields, or Swords and Shields. Pokemon's Swords and Shields? Oh, who cares? Pokemon is the #1 media franchise in the entire world. They make so much money. I honestly think they're probably funneling billions into some secret government lab to actually create real-life Pokemon and release into the wild as part of some Pokemon Go expansion or something.
Cute, isn't it?
Look at this. Look at what I'm putting on your screens right now. There's simply no excuse for this level of shoddiness. The pop-in in this game is just embarrassing. The story is as bare bones as a stripping Marowak, sorry for that image. And don't even get me started on the National Dex-ish. Well, we'll talk about that whole situation later. And please don't think I'm blaming the grunts on the ground for this. It's purely a corporate thing. It's at the top. And then it trickles down to the bottom because all these people are literally slaving away for no pay most of the time to try and get these products out on time for Christmas so little kids can get their grubby fingers on it. It's horrible. And it's one of the main things I want to cover in this series, but again, we'll get to that later. Now, I can't help but feel that these multi-billion-dollar companies aren't exactly pulling their weight when it comes to making their games. So I let my mind wander, and I come up with my own games, my dream pitches for things I'd like to see in some of my favourite gaming franchises. And that is what this series is all about. Now, I just want to clarify, just because the name is JoyConcepts, this isn't going to be an exclusively Nintendo franchise series. I do want to cover other, franchises from Sony, Microsoft, Atlas, all sorts of different things. It's just that JoyConcepts was the best name I could come up with. The other one was Pixel Pitches, which kind of sucks. I also want to clarify, this is not a wish list for what I think the next gen Pokemon game is going to be. This is just my idea for one. There's a couple of things in there, like I want like a richer story, I want better graphics, I want a more expansive world. Obviously, I want those in the real game, and they're going to be in my game. But in terms of actual specific story points, actual specific Pokemon, stuff that we'll get into, I'm not going to have a hissy fit and cry if they're not in the next game. I also want to say I don't want to be a backseat developer here. I know a little bit about 3D modeling, quite a lot about writing. I do want to be a writer, but I don't pretend to know even the ins and outs, really. But I'm trying to make realistic choices. I'm trying to make it so that if you wanted to make this game, you could. And I certainly think the Pokemon Company could make this game with the resources that they have. But I want to make an atmosphere with this series of creativity and imagination. It's not all going to be complaining about what the devs of different companies do. That's kind of the basis of what it's built on. But it's not going to be the actual series. I just want to pitch my ideas, and we'll have fun with them. And that's what it's going to be. So if you're not here for a fun time, you can bloody jog on, mate. So this video is just going to be a little introduction to the actual game that I'm pitching, and then in the future we'll cover gameplay, the region, the Pokemon in the region, and the story and characters, and then maybe just a little wrap-up video at the end. Let's get started. And I figured Pokemon's a good place to start because, well, no, but more than that, I'm one of those kids who played Pokemon as a kid and absolutely fell in love with it. Not only is it really colourful and a great introduction to RPGs and turn-based combat, but it appeals to that idea of independence, no supervision, adventure and freedom that a lot of kids possess, especially ones from small towns like me, because I definitely could have survived on my own in the woods full of demon Neopets as an 8-year-old. I will say, although I played Sword, it's the first game I've played since Emerald, so I skipped Gen 4, Gen 5, Gen 6, and Gen 7. But I feel like Sword's given me a good reintroduction to the series, and I've done my research on what the other gens added, so don't worry about my credentials there. I have a good idea of what to keep, and a pretty good idea of what to change as well. Pokemon Land and Sea would be the official 9th generation of Pokemon. Set in the Osha region, based on the real-world New Zealand and Australia, the game would have a heavy focus on the culture and religion of the real-life location, both in terms of the native ocean people and the immigrant colonizers, mirroring the continent's own history of the Aboriginal and Maori people. Not only will this play into a gripping story, but it will serve to flesh out the locations you visit in the game, making even the most random of NPCs fully realised characters. The name Land and Sea takes inspiration from the indigenous peoples of Oceania, especially the Maori people who, due to the nature of their surroundings, heavily feature the land and sea in their mythology. And before you ask, no, I did not just get this information from Moana. Got it from Lilo and Stitch too. No, but in all seriousness, I've done fairly extensive research into the various tribes, deities, and mythology of both countries in order to create a recognisable and respectful representation. And it's Pokemon. One of them is a bloody ice cream cone, but the least I can do is respect the culture. Now, because the region's based in Australia, I actually considered the name Home and Away instead of Land and Sea, and I'll actually explain why that makes a bit more sense than you think in a second. However, I don't want to get sued, so Land and Sea it is. Now, talking about the name, it actually raises a great point and one that I've been thinking about a lot. The two games, or rather, should this be two games? As has been the case since literally the first ever entry in this franchise. See, the average person will only buy one of these games, right? Like, I have Sword. I'm not going to buy Shield. I know some people do for the completionism, but, you know, come on. We've got to think about the standard audience here. But I have a very distinct memory from childhood. I absolutely loved Emerald. I completed it. I 100%ed it. I loved it, mate. Then my mum took me to the Metro Centre, big shopping centre. She took me to game and she said, you can have another Game Boy game. I had a Game Boy Advanced SP. I loved it, brought it everywhere. And she said, you can have another game. And of course, what am I thinking? I'm thinking I want another Pokemon game. I loved that Pokemon game so much. It was my favourite game. So I bought another one. I took it home. I put it in. And I thought I'd accidentally put in Emerald. So I look. Nope, that cartridge isn't green, it's red. I bought Ruby. See, my problem with this system, the differences between the games are getting smaller and smaller, and honestly, it feels like a cash grab at this point. I know of course it always was, but at the point where kids are gonna get disappointed because they're going to accidentally buy the same game twice. And kids do not want the same game twice just for one to have a slightly different fish.
But if you close your eyes, does it almost feel like nothing changed at all?
Therefore, Pokemon Land and Sea will ship as one full-priced game with options. As you put up the game, you'll get the introductory cutscene, of course. I'll talk about animation style in my story video, but I want it to be absolutely stunning and a great introduction to the region, some of the Pokemon, characters, and even some of the legendaries that we're going to meet on our epic journey. Then we get to the title screen, or rather, titles screen. You get the option to choose either land or sea, and your choice would have some fairly large ramifications in terms of obtainable Pokemon. Without spoiling too much about the National Pokédex situation, it's back. It's back and bigger than ever. However, there would only be about 500 of the Pokemon available in either game. Now that might seem incredibly tedious, but there would be 3 options to complete your national dex. Option 1 is to complete the story of the game. After the story is completed, the dex opens up and the rest of the 500 Pokemon are reintegrated into your save file, meaning you can complete the dex within your original game. Option 2 will be a form of New Game Plus, named either Sprawling Land or Endless Sea, depending on which version you choose. This would reset the game's story, but would skip the tutorial and allow you to keep all your progress, including your Pokemon in both your team and storage. Now, upon starting the New Game Plus, you would get access to all 1000 Pokemon, but the difficulty would be ramped up by about 100. Option 3 is the most similar to the current model without having to fork out an extra $60. You would simply play the other version of the game, which would feature separate save files, and then trade over your other 500 Pokemon into one game so that you'd have a full national decks. And thankfully, this would not require Nintendo Online. That's all I really want to cover for now, just kind of basic stuff. We'll definitely get more in depth as we go, but for now I'll give you a few teasers for the upcoming episodes. I plan around 110 Pokemon for this region, inspired by a number of things, including various forms of Australian and Kiwi wildlife, flora, culture, mythology, and religion. This game will expand heavily on the wild areas of Sword and Shield, but bringing in a lot more freedom, graphical appeal, and more open world elements fans are desperately craving. The towns and cities found throughout the region will be expansive and heavily thematic, be it for the location they're in or from their real world counterparts. Their gyms and citizens will also reflect this. Pokemon's an RPG, and I think it's about time the R is P'd in the G. Oh god, that sounded horrible. Look, I'm talking about giving the player character, character. I don't want to spoil it too much here, but it's one of the things I'm most excited to share. Character customization is going to be big in this game. I'm talking Animal Crossing Splatoon levels of customization. Oh yeah. Finally, each new game for the past 3 generations has introduced some sort of gimmick, such as Mega Evolutions, Z moves, Gigantamaxing, and so on and so forth. I too have come up with a concept that I think will be both intriguing and fun in both casual and competitive play. But that is for another time. And there you have it for the first episode of the first installment of this series. Please let me know what you thought in the comments below, and also let me know about your own Pokemon JoyConcepts. Any real-world locations you think will make a great Pokemon region? Any ideas for the Pokemon themselves you've been sketching in your notebooks for years? Please do tell me. I would absolutely love to hear it. And please subscribe, leave a like, all that sort of thing, so that the series can grow and prosper and all that good stuff. Oh, and one last thing. At the time of this recording, Smash Ultimate has 2 DLC characters left, and a Sword and Shield Pokemon is almost guaranteed. So, #Wooloo for Smash. Bye!